minutes. Otherwise, we're ready to go into the next session. It's my pleasure to invite Ashish Chugh from Loomis Sales, who manages their emerging markets portfolio. He's one of the top performing fund managers in that space. I think one of the highest last year in the world. So we're delighted to have him. And Pam, Reeve, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I'll let Ashish take it from here. Oh, yes. We have a video, right? Sorry. Yeah, we do have a video on American Tower. I think maybe we should see that before you. I don't think the chairs are bothering anyone, so please.
More than ever, people around the world rely on wireless networks to stay connected to family, work, critical support, and the communications that enrich our lives. The events of 2020 have highlighted our reliance on connectivity and demand promises to increase further in the years ahead. Since the early days of wireless technology, American Tower has provided essential infrastructure to fulfill the connectivity demands of individuals, small and large businesses, and governments. And we continue to invest in our infrastructure to support the needs from emerging markets to markets with mature network technology. American Tower owns and operates 181,000 multi-tenant communication sites across 21 countries. Our towers and other communication sites support wireless service providers, radio and television broadcast companies, wireless data providers, government agencies, and municipalities that provide basic communications, broadband, telemedicine applications, automated manufacturing, and agriculture. More than 1,700 people in the United States work at American Tower, supporting 40,000 towers, working together to enable reliable connectivity that spans the globe. Let's take a look at the role towers play when using a wireless device. A voice call, text message, or email is converted to an electrical signal and transmitted from a small antenna on the device over radio waves or spectrum to an antenna on the tower. The signal travels down the tower via cable to the base station at the tower compound for processing, and then carried over fiber cable and with more processing in a reverse process to the intended recipient's device. Like a multi-tenant office building, a tower can be home to multiple tenants, each occupying different floors. American Tower leases space on our towers and the ground below to multiple service providers, or tenants, who install antenna, cables, and servers that deliver service. This business model is called co-location, or a neutral host model. Co-location allows for multiple tenants on a single tower, which provides 3 key advantages. 1, it's efficient. Co-location avoids duplication of carrier capital investment in shareable tower infrastructure. In addition, attaching equipment on an existing tower may be quicker than building a new one. 2, it's sustainable. A single tower is sustainable and more appealing to the community. By reducing the number of towers needed to provide coverage, co-location reduces the physical footprint of wireless networks and minimizes the number of towers in an area. 3, enables innovation. Co-location enables tower tenants to focus on their core competency as service providers, potentially freeing up resources, like time and capital, for deployment and further innovation. As the technology of communications has evolved over the years, American Tower has remained out front with the industry's innovators. Today, we're providing the critical tower infrastructure for the global move to 5G as we help our tenants deliver long-anticipated innovations in the way we work and live.
We hardly need to have a chat now.
So, thank you everyone. Welcome to this session. Thank you so much for being here. And it is really my high honor and great privilege to welcome Pam Reeve, the chair of the board of American Tower. As you saw, American Tower is a very large multinational company. It's an 80 billion market cap company. So Pam has a very eclectic background. She's been an entrepreneur, she's been a CEO, and she's been a director on the boards of many companies as well as not-for-profit entities. So it's really great to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So maybe we can just take it from there, Pam. If you can share more about your background for the audience, that would be great.
Oh, thank you, Ashish, for those kind words. And I just sort of made a side comment. Maybe we can just call it a day since you know everything about towers now from the little clip. It's really a pleasure to be with all of you, and I'm delighted that the weather's gotten better for us, so going home will be a little easier maybe than coming in was. American Tower's global headquarters are right down the road here on Huntington Avenue, so I guess it's part of the extended Northeastern footprint or Northeastern community. And in addition to Sanjay, who you heard from this morning in his session, Ed DeSanto, who's our Chief Administrative Officer, is with us, and he's a Husky. So he's with us today, and I think he's here because he's very interested in the topic, and he's also going to make sure I don't say something untoward since I've signed away my rights to not have this recorded. Make sure that I don't say anything that I shouldn't say about the business, but it's great to have Ed always to partner with him on things. I think there's so much to discuss, and I've been able to be here for part of the day to hear the commentary about India at 75. I mean, really, India at 4,500, but then plus India at 75, and how exciting the past 75 years has been, but what the future holds for this amazing, very large, dynamic, and growing country, and the opportunities, not just for growth, for more revenue, for a more of an impact on the global economy, but for a better way of life for billions of people as the time goes by in India and around the world, and to be a terrific trading partner as well. So my personal interest, and I think the interest of American Tower, is to play a role in being a partner with India to make sure that that's a sustainable and equitable and inclusive future for India. And you mentioned that I've been on the board for a long time. It was very kind of you not to say how many years. I've been on the board since 2002. I was lead director for quite some time. And then in a fit of perfect timing, when our new CEO came on board from the CFO slot, I became chair of the board just as we shut down the country for COVID. And I was part of the board as we began to discover international markets that we wanted to spend more money in and to build business in, and was definitely part of that decision to move into India in 2007 and continue to evolve and grow and learn with India. I think India is still an evolving democracy and an evolving marketplace that we're all learning from every day. My background is in telecommunications. I started off in consulting and then started a software company in the telecom space. Wireless companies were my customers, and saw a lot of the good, bad, and the ugly of growing rapidly in an emerging marketplace, and have really been delighted to have that experience as well as being on some telecom boards. The other thing I would just add is I do spend a lot of time in the healthcare space as well, and for me there's a very nice sync up between communication and digital infrastructure and what is possible in healthcare. We've seen a lot of that during the last few years as we've been going through COVID. I think a number of people have mentioned that today, and we certainly saw that here in the United States as well. I have chaired the board of the largest Medicaid dental provider in the country, so servicing the lower income folks in our country here in the United States, as well as sitting on the board of Mass General Brigham, which is the largest network here in Massachusetts, trying to provide the best health care to folks in Massachusetts. So as I think about what sort of gives me juice personally, I know this is about a professional background, but also personally, the intersection of the enablement of communications technology with the most important issues I think we're facing as people, which are healthcare and education and citizenship, really makes me very excited about the opportunity to be here with you today, but also very excited to continue to work with American Tower and excited to see what India does in those areas. And I think that we bring our ideas and our technology to India, and we get ideas and technology from India, and that's the way a partnership's supposed to work.
That's great. Thank you for that background. That's wonderful. So we saw a great video on the company, and you talk about India a lot, and India certainly is a big part of the business for American Tower. So can you talk a little bit more, please, about the business American Tower is in India, and what the plan is going forward.
Yeah, you saw from the video, and not to repeat that too much, I'm sure everyone was listening intently and taking copious notes at the time. We are an infrastructure provider in the digital communication space. We're the leading global independent developer, owner, and operator of those assets around the world. We have not 180,000, 222,000, I think, right now. It changes every day. Wireless towers around the world. We have 75,000 of them in India. And it is very much, as the video said, if you think about it like an office building where different people rent different offices. So rather than everybody having to build their own office tower, we build an infrastructure that then is shareable by the different telecommunications companies, makes for a more efficient use of capital. So everyone's not building their own towers. It makes a more sustainable, climate and community-friendly environment, so you don't have even more towers. People are pretty grumpy about building lots of towers in their towns and villages, and just as a more reasonable way, I think, to share that capability, and allows our partners, our clients, to focus on the things that we think they do really well and we don't do at all, which is the service that rides on top of that connectivity. And we actually pioneered that concept of the shared infrastructure here in the United States, and that was quite some years ago. And now that's just common, in the industry all around the world. But I guess we get 1 point of pride, from the fact that we really, created that concept. I think that everyone today talked about growth in India, and that's true all around the world, that we're moving to more and more doing digital everything. And that's all wonderful. We need the software for that. We need the devices for that. We need training for that. We need a lot of things for that. But none of it works without the infrastructure. None of it works without the underlying connectivity that we provide. So that makes me very optimistic about the opportunities that we have around the world here in the U.S. and certainly our topic today are in India for that. I would also add particularly that we find that in our global markets, there is a wide range of grid reliability. Those sites don't work unless there's power. You got to have the sites running in order to deliver that connectivity. And the reliability of the grid, the uptime of the grid varies a lot country by country. And so we found ourselves very much in the position of making sure that we provide the primary power to those sites. Our clients rely on the uptime, and their customers, which are individuals and healthcare providers and educators and all of the others, really rely on that uptime. So we found ourselves very much in that business. And then the last thing I'd say, and I guess we'll talk about it more later if you want to, is that's the business of our business. We're a public company. It's how we make our money. It's what we report to shareholders. But it's also really important to us to be a good member of the community, and we have a very strong and energetic philanthropic gene and a philanthropic arm of our business, and it builds on those things that are our business. So we have been very active in building out what we call digital communities. That picture that you saw of a cell site has the tower for the connectivity. It has land. It has a secure facility. It has power. All those things are necessary to deliver other capabilities to maybe remote areas that aren't in an urban environment and don't have all the things that we have here in Boston. That's a very important part of what we do as a business, and it's really important to our staff that we do that as well.
It doesn't take much to think about the type of development that the company would have engaged in, have provided to a developing country like India, given the proliferation of mobile devices, given the fact that data is so valuable in a country like India, given how dispersed the country is. So maybe I'd love to hear your thoughts on how the company has contributed to the development of the country.
Well, I think it goes hand in hand. It's very interesting, particularly listening to Mr. Bagla today. about all the numbers, and all the numbers and how big they are and the growth that's been experienced and what's being expected. And for the vast majority of those 57, 58 sectors that he talked about, the underlying digital infrastructure has to be in place for that to happen.
Right.
And even these days, industries that we would have historically thought of as being not necessarily high tech, like agriculture, are high tech. I mean, everything's a technology business now. So the connectivity for information as well as for the commercialization is a requirement in order for that to happen. So we feel, and we do make a business out of it. As I said, public company, we're looking to deliver to our shareholders, but we feel that being an infrastructure company plays a pivotal role in the development of a country like India. There is really no way for India to achieve its objectives without the infrastructure companies doing their job well, doing their job safely, doing their job with the climate and everything else involved or in mind. And to give you some sense, I said that we have 75,000 towers in India today, and I keep looking over there because I know the numbers change on a daily basis, and it's hard to keep up with them because we're literally building towers every day. We built about 11,000 towers the last 3 years, and we're as much as anything bound by availability of time and place and permits and that kind of thing. Most of that capacity has been focused on the build out of the current technology 4G networks. And those towers are sometimes standalone towers that you're used to seeing here in the United States if you drive down, I-95 or the Mass Pike. But a lot of those are also rooftop towers, particularly in the very dense urban environments where there's not an opportunity to put up a freestanding tower as much. There are a lot of rooftops. The importance of the connectivity has always been there for development. I think we've all seen the last few years during COVID where we have not been able to be together physically, that we have relied on the connectivity for us to even survive, let alone to thrive. And some businesses have really thrived during the last several years. One of the comments that Mr. Bagla made was really interesting to me. I found myself kind of debating in my head with him, was about people moving from the rural environments to the urban environments. And there's some goodness to that, but there's some maybe not goodness to that. One of the things that spreading out the digital infrastructure and the capability does, as we've seen all over the world, is it allows work to be done in a distributed way. So you don't have to add to the congestion of the largest cities. You can, people can move to cities, but you don't have to. And people can work from anywhere and be productive and can be part of the world economy, let alone their country economy, wherever they are. And I think that's kind of a beautiful thing for India as well as for the rest of the world. I just would finally say, I know you know this really well because you're an investor in the space. I said that our last 11,000 towers were mostly built out of the 4G technology because that's the core technology that's in India right now. But 5G is right around the corner. In fact, probably not even around the corner. It is coming. And 5G requires a more dense articulation of the infrastructure. So there will be more towers that will be needed in order to really deliver on the promise of 5G. Some people today mentioned things like IoT, Internet of Things. We've been involved with partners in pilots and considering how to better deliver things like the driverless cars, and people want to keep track of their assets, and there are just so many applications that are being piloted now and will be delivered in India and other places around the world. That's going to take more towers for 5G to really deliver on that promise. So we quite like that very much and want to be a part of helping India achieve that.
That's great. So, the theme is innovation. I'd be curious to know what innovations has the company developed in India for India, and then in India for the rest of the world. It is a very innovative company. As a prior shareholder, I know that as firsthand.
A prior shareholder? We have to talk after this.
if you look at the innovations that the company is making for India and for the rest of the world, love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, this is a company, it's so interesting when I talk to people about the company, because in some ways, folks look at it and think it's a construction business. So what's so innovative about a construction business? It is a construction and a real estate business in so many parts of it, but it is all about this digital infrastructure. And we have to be innovative because of the different markets that we work in and the requirements of those markets, and also the evolution of the business. So we have an innovation activity within our group. We have a tremendous global head of our innovation activities, our innovation group, and we have innovation hubs in all of our markets, and people participate and share their ideas globally. Not all good ideas, shockingly, don't come from the United States or from any one market. They are from all over the world, and the needs are different, and therefore the development happens in different places and then can be shared more globally. We have a lot of different things underway right now. I mentioned the driverless cars. We have projects going on with some of our satellite partners to fill in some of those gaps where it's not even practical to build a tower, but because we really want to make sure everyone on the globe can be connected and can enjoy the economy that we all enjoy here in the hub here in Boston. But two things, you asked about India for India.
Right.
So two things I would highlight. I mentioned earlier that having the grid up and available all the time is really important in order for us to deliver on the promise of wireless connectivity. And so we have to be mindful of the issues in different parts of the world on that topic. How do we have a sustainable and reliable energy to power those sites around the world? And in our developed markets, like the United States, the sites are metered separately. I mean, we almost don't participate in that at all. That's something that's it's between the carrier and the power provider. But in a country like India, that's not the case. We have taken on that role in India. And there are places where, many places where we've put in generators, and those generators are fueled by diesel, and we have to meet our SLAs to keep the uptime. That is not environmentally as friendly as we like, and it's not as sustainable as we would like. So we have spent a lot of time and energy inside our company, but more importantly with partners, technical partners, university partners, and corporate partners to develop other forms of power to make sure that grid is up. And as many of our public companies are putting forth, because we think it's the right thing to do and because we're being urged to do so by the public market, we have established goals for ourselves to reduce our global footprint and to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. And that's really important to us to do that. So we've invested in lithium-ion batteries and other energy-efficient technologies, a lot of solar, that kind of thing. And the initial results have been good. I think we can do more, but we've been able to reduce our per-site consumption about 35% so far. India has been the largest participant and lab and learning place for us on that. It's been India for India, but it also is where we leverage that learning. We take it to other emerging markets that have similar characteristics, where they have problems with their grid. And it's been great to work with our Indian partners there. So I would say that's an important one. And then I mentioned earlier the Digital Communities Initiative, which is out of our company but is managed in our philanthropic arm. And this is one I'm personally really, really excited about. We decided about a decade ago, I think that's right, about 10 years ago, that we ought to be able to do more with our sites, particularly in the emerging markets, and be a better community player and help to raise up the middle class in each of the markets that we work in. It's the right thing to do. It's a good business thing to do. So I think it's kind of a win-win all the way around. So we decided that we were going to try to build out these digital communities around where our sites are, particularly in less served and rural environments. We need partners in order to do that. We have the site, but we're not developers of educational curriculum. We don't provide the financial literacy programs. We're not healthcare providers, but we have to partner with others. And in India, I think it's been, again, a large part of our effort. It has been one of the most creative places that we have worked with partners in order to deliver on the promise of these digital communities. We now have, I think, around 300 in India, and we deliver in those sites curriculum for children, I would say like middle school to high school age children. We also deliver career curriculum. The speaker earlier today was talking about things people need to know so they can do a better job getting to work, how to write a resume, how to speak in an interview, that kind of thing. We've been involved in some of those career preparation activities as well. And then partnering, for example, in India with Apollo Hospital on telehealth, but also on the possibility of actually dispensing medicines from our sites to people in communities that otherwise would just not be able to get to a location to get the medicine. So those are really important to us. We think we've touched around 200,000 people in India so far in these 300 communities. It has been, I think, great for those folks. I see the CG nodding his head, thank you very much. But it's also been a great learning lab. It's for India, but it's been a great learning lab for us to take these learnings to other emerging markets around the world. And we've pledged to build 2,000 of those digital communities by 2025. So we got to keep going.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. We have a few minutes left, so maybe open it up to questions from the audience. Please raise your hand. Yeah, over there, please.
Question for you. I heard this morning that the cost per, telecom usage, cost per whatever gigabyte is so low in India compared to the rest of the world. How does your cost economics work for the tower operation in India versus the rest of the world?
How does it work for, say that again?
The cost of running the tower operation in India versus the rest of the world. Because if India is charging less per gigabyte of bandwidth for the telecoms, it's few cents compared to what happens here in the U.S. Around the entire supply chain, the cost has to be lower. So if you are charging lower for the tower cost in India, are you translating that into lower cost elsewhere in the world?
We are a global company, but we operate locally. So our cost structure in any country is driven by the costs in that country and the cost to deliver in that country. We try to share efficiencies, what we develop and learn about in countries. Sometimes it's directly translatable. But our factor costs are local factor costs, and the market pricing is the market pricing. So the efficiencies we can translate. We can take those to other markets. The factor costs are the factor costs. So we're not able to really do that as much as one might like. I hope I answered your question.
Great, thank you. Other questions? Yeah, over there.
Thank you for taking my question. So you mentioned your company has a presence in India since 2007, if I'm correct. So I think there might be some challenges when you try to establish your presence in India. So, and maybe you might answer some of the challenges in your answering to Ashish. But like, what are the key challenges you experience? And like, if you describe those key challenges and how you overcome those challenges and how you are seeing your company from the growth-wise after 5 to 10 years, specifically in Indian market.
Thank you for that question. I have to look over at Ed. He's worried about what I'm going to say. This is a 75-year celebration, and I think most of our conversation has been very positive and upbeat, which it should be, because India's a fabulous place. But it's not without its challenges, and maybe particularly for U.S. companies, I don't know that, versus Indian companies, I don't know that to be true. So for us, I would say initially it was, who are you? Who are you? When we started initially, we had a couple of people on the ground and maybe a couple of towers that first year. And there were some other larger players. So I think early on, as one does, you start to network out and get to know all the players in government as well as in the marketplace. And in some ways, I would say you act larger than you actually are. So American Tower was the instigator of the Tower Industry Association in India. It did not exist before we instigated it. that was a little bit gumptious of us to do as the new kid in town. But we did that. We wanted to create that format and create that sort of that cluster effect of a group of like-minded people trying to support and grow an industry, and not just individual competitors, although we of course are individual competitors. So that was a bit of a challenge. And then we grew by acquisition. And every country has its own rules about how acquisitions work and what the ownership percentages can be, how the financing has to be structured, that kind of thing. We had a lot of great advisors, in-country advisors, as well as our own staff who grew up in India or had done business in India. But we relied a lot. Again, we're big into partnership and making sure that we get the best advice we can. So we grew definitely by acquisition. And then when you add customers, and we have all the major carriers are customers of ours, in addition to acquiring portfolios, our customers are always growing. So we're building according to their needs, and that helps to fuel the growth engine. I think that India continues to be an evolving, it's still in some ways a young, evolving marketplace. And so we work with our compatriots in India on tax policies, on fees that are charged to various industries. The government needs fees to fuel its initiatives and the thing it's trying to do for its people. Companies want to pay as low a fee as they possibly can in order to run their businesses. So we deal with those kinds of things. And the evolution of the legal system, we think that's something that will continue to progress. But those are things we work with our partners on. And I'm always a believer that people who have the same outcome in mind, which is we want to grow this thing and we want it to be successful for all parties, will eventually get there. But you have to have patience and you have to have a long-term view. I think if you're going to go into any emerging market, you have to have a long-term view and be willing to work with your partners there to make it happen.
Great. I think we could continue this conversation for hours, but we want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was a treat. Thank you very much.